Hi there, Serial Trader here. Let's have a look at weed and CGC. Now, starting off with weed, obviously today the forecast, anticipate a thrust out of the triangle, and this is about as good of a result as you can possibly expect from having a forecast rendered by technical analysis, and in this case, particularly the Elliott wave principle. We cleanly broke out of the contracting triangle trend lines, had just a monster stay up. Probably one of the biggest single day dollar moves in the history of this chart. On good volume, I mean this volume's higher than it has been in at least a couple weeks here, and just rocketed pretty steadily all day, closed near the high of the day. Now, interestingly enough, on the weed chart here, we obviously broke our B wave resistance level at 72, but we didn't quite break the all-time high on weed, which was at 74.45. We went as high as 74. Okay, so 45 cents shy of an all-time high on weed, and yet on canopy growth, we did break out to a new all-time high. Sorry, on CGC here, they're both canopy growth, but on CGC, the U.S. Listed name, we got as high as 57, and the previous all-time high was 56.60. So that's a slight variation there, but I highly expect tomorrow, likely right at the open, that we'll break a new high on weed. Well, looking at weed just one last time here. So yes, this is a great move. Yes, it looks a little overextended short term, and at this point, any kind of a short term, minor pullback would be absolutely healthy and normal. But that being said, this move does not look like it's done. My initial Fibonacci, my reverse fib target for weed is 82 and change. We're nowhere near that. My loftier target up here is the 2.0 multiple, and that's at 96 and change. And then there's the triangle thrust measurement, which brings us right about to, we'll call it 88 or so. So despite being very, very short-term overheated here, there is still more upside by the looks of it. And RSI is not in the overbought condition yet on the daily, and even once it is, typically you don't actually form a top until you have a little bit of an RSI bearish divergence on the daily. So if you look over here, right here, okay, you see this high here at 62.79. That's where RSI peaked out at 80, okay, and then we had a little dip down, pretty minor, came back up, made a significantly higher high up here at 74.45. So from 62.79 up to 74.45, and look, RSI made a lower high, pardon me, at what was the exact level? It made a lower high at 76. So RSI made a high at 80, and yet price made a high when RSI was at 76. So you had that little bearish divergence, and then we had our top, and then we had this wave 4 contracting triangle pullback. So now at this point, we're going to look for this initial really strong move to get up, get overbought RSI on the daily, look for some sort of a fairly minor pullback. I mean, I say minor in comparison to today's kind of move. It could still be a multiple dollar pullback, no doubt about it. And at that point, look for a higher high and then RSI diverge, a bearish divergence, and then we can start looking at this as though we have a significant peak and maybe even a shorting opportunity if the conditions are right. Because the message that a triangle conveys is it's the final move in an Elliott impulse sequence. So once you have your final impulse wave out of the triangle, you require a much larger pullback, at least back to the origin or so of the triangle. So if we get up to 96, that would imply a pullback down to somewhere in the 60s. That's enormous. So I'll leave that there. But yeah, we've triangle wave 4 obviously done. Obviously coming up now in impulse wave 5 here. Now let's go to the CGC chart. Exact same pattern, other than the fact that we did actually break the high today. Volume, very nice signature, higher than the last couple of weeks easily, and significantly higher. Just on both of these charts. So on the cusp of a bullish MACD cross on the daily MACD for weed and for CGC, that's identical. CGC targets. So our initial target, the 1.382 reverse fib, that comes in at 62 and change. So that's a very near-term target we should be able to meet. And then we have the triangle thrust measurement, which comes in at around 68 and change, almost 69. And then the 2.0 multiple at 72.42. So CGC also significantly more upside here, despite any shorter term pullbacks we may see. And with that being said, let's go look at the Thinkorswim platform. So this was about as good as it gets as far as getting in the exact right time and just having the chart cooperate almost as perfectly as you can ask for. So with that being said, this is one of my accounts here, but that big straddle I put on that I mentioned last week. So profit or loss for the day, this is the number right here, 82,347 USD, and I certainly had other accounts with exposure and nice gains as well, but this definitely is the standout. So this, in recent memory, this is probably the single best day in a very long time, if not the best day. So obviously extremely happy with that. Now let's go over to the after hours chart here on CGC. So we closed at 56.89, just below the all-time high we set today at 57. But in after hours, we then went as high as 58.44. Right now, trading's not happening, and we're sitting right around 58. So if this is any indication, I would expect a strong open tomorrow morning, possibly a gap up, maybe some continuation, but typically when you have a gap up after such a strong move, you usually come down to test that gap, do a little consolidation. So be looking for that tomorrow. But yeah, I guess the key message here is the move is not done. Short term, it might be almost done. But you can stick with this one. At this point, taking profits is absolutely a good idea, but definitely let some of it run. And then once we, once we get into a situation where we have a bearish divergence on the daily RSI and we've met some targets, and maybe even we get a bearish engulfing candlestick or a nice doji reversal signal, at that point, this will be a pretty attractive looking put buying candidate. But for now, ride this wave up. Legalization is on the 17th, so not tomorrow, but the next day. So I imagine we'll at least still have some hype into Wednesday. After that, we might start really pulling back or cooling off. But we'll see. Let the chart be the guide. All right, that should be good for now. Serial Trader signing off.